Hello and welcome to Cricket and Wrestling for Us. Once again, we've got Aman, the wrestling connoisseur, if you want to call him.
Thank you for having me once again. Yeah, it's been another busy week in the world of wrestling, so let's crack it. Just wanted to express my views on the finish to the Finn Balor Roman Reigns match. I thought Extreme Rules was a good pay-per-view all in all, though. I really enjoyed that. There were some solid matches, solid storytelling. Didn't see the Sasha Banks return coming on the in the Becky Bianca match, so that was a good addition. But I thought the Finn Roman match was good. As we said on the show last week, we didn't expect them to have a bad match. The finish was just hokey and not what me at my age or my demographic is looking for in that type of match. But I'm not sure if I've said this to you, but I listen to this wrestling podcast called Busted Open. And it's got this long life fan called Dave LaGreca. He's the host. He has this podcast. He does it every day with Bully Ray, Mark Henry, Tommy Dreamer, and then they talk about wrestling on a daily basis. And they were talking about this finish to the match between Finn and Roman. And they said that Vince is not catering to the 18 to 49 demographic with his main roster shows. He's not bothered about us in that demographic. All he's bothered about is catering it to a younger fan, which makes sense. It's a PG product. It's more like, when was the last time you saw 18 onwards at Raws and SmackDowns on camera? Recently, it's been younger children. It's been families, kids there with their mum and dad, and things like that. So I can see that it's marketable, the demon character, to younger children, but the logic just doesn't make sense to me. So this demon character, who is supposed to be even more difficult to beat and even more stronger than the Finn character, and you throughout his run in NXT and to a certain extent on the main roster, that he's unbeatable, he's the next level, and he gets beat, or the beat of him gets led by he tripped on a turnbuckle and got a spear.
I just want to say something. He didn't trip. He didn't trip. Everything just blew up. Right?
Okay. I apologize. It just blew up. So that even makes, but it blows my mind that is a finish to a main event wrestling match. I just think the less said on that, the better. Destroyed. That has ruined the credibility of that demon character now.
Yeah, I think you're right in terms of the credibility of the demon character. It's probably gone downhill. He even lost in NXT, I think, to Samoa Joe, but that wasn't. That was a great match. It was a very well told story. This was very The Fiend-esque kind of ending, which just didn't sit right with me, and I don't think it sat right with anyone, especially yourself, because you are an absolutely huge Finn fan. Yeah, let's get cracking. And speaking of cracking, right, what did you think of the double WWE title defense that happened on Raw? Because first it was the match Biggie versus Bobby Lashley. Started the show off, and we saw a very good, well-contested match. And then something happened that I didn't expect. The Hurt Business, number one, got back together. Number two, appeared out of nowhere, because when it broke up, Cedric Alexander, Shelton Benjamin had a fight with each other. Then they were off TV for a while. Now they're back, and now they're back a lot aligned with Bobby Lashley. So that was a shock to me. What was your thoughts on, Hurt Business getting back together?
Raw, I thought, was much better again for this. I think this is the third week running that we have said that Raw is getting better. There was a constant theme throughout the show as it pertains to Biggie, the New Day, Bobby Lashley, and then you had that Hurt Business, will they, won't they, happening. So that was a good thread that continued from start, middle to end. I enjoyed that. I thought the match was very good. I didn't see why you would bring the Hurt Business back again for them to get beat up. I thought if you're reuniting them, you'd want to give them some credibility on their reunion show. But as again, what happens on the main roster or who okays this creative is beyond me, I guess. But the Drew McIntyre challenge, again, we was discussing last week or the week prior. Who do you have to face a babyface Biggie? And I did read some of the comments from the videos last week. Some people were saying, oh, well, you could have Sheamus, you could have Randy Orton, you could have all sorts of other people. So I don't know if they're turning Drew heel to face it, a babyface Biggie, or there's been a lot of rumor, and I think a lot of people are wanting Drew to move to SmackDown in the draft. So if that's the plan, then why have you decided to sprinkle this feud in? But as a whole, I enjoyed Raw much better than the weeks prior. So hopefully they've got some sort of role now, and we can continue to see that in the weeks to come.
Yeah, that's what we all hope, right? And the funny thing with Raw is if you have 3 good weeks of Raw, the fourth one is probably going to be terrible. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it doesn't follow the same thread that it has been for years upon years. But definitely this Raw was very entertaining. As you said, the Drew McIntyre reveal, if you want to call it that. I don't think he's going to turn heel at the moment. I have a feeling it's going to be face versus face kind of interaction. Not sure what's going to happen at Crown Jewel. I don't even know if there's going to be a match on Crown Jewel with Biggie or Drew McIntyre or anything. But definitely, if this is the way forward, both of them are very talented. Both of them cut really good promos, unless they talk about kilts and swords, okay, which is just preposterous. But anyways, long story short, I'm excited about this feud. I just want to mention one more thing before we, move on to NXT 2.0. What did you think of the fact that, Matt Riddle got absolutely hammered by AJ Styles? That was a fantastic match. No arguments there. Brilliant match. He got laid to waste by AJ Styles, and then in the end by Omos as well. I've recently heard something about Randy Orton not being 100% fit. What do you think? What do you think is going to be the culmination of this Riddle RK Bro storyline? Do you think they're aiming for a WrestleMania kind of event or WrestleMania type of match where they have a lot of reveals like Randy Orton basically betrays him, or if Riddle betrays Randy Orton and you have a face-heel dynamic going into into WrestleMania? Do you think something like that might be happening over the course of the next few months?
I think there's a lot of ways you can go with it. I think I've heard that. I saw that story as well, that Randy Orton is allegedly supposed to be unfit to be medically cleared right now, so that's why he's been off TV. But it just depends on how long he's going to be off TV and what you want to do. I think there's 2 potential stories you could go with it. Like you've said, they could bring Randy back when he wants to come back and turn him fully heel against Matt Riddle, and then have them feud out and have it culminate at WrestleMania with like a Riddle Randy Orton singles match. But I think that you could also have, and what I think would get a much more of a babyface pop, would be if you constantly had AJ and Omos beating on Riddle and beating on Riddle and beating on Riddle. So, and the fans want to see Randy Orton come and rescue Riddle, and they have the RK Bro chance, they have the Bro chance going, and then when Randy finally does come and does get rid of AJ and Omos, you've got this huge babyface pop, this huge reunion, similar to what they did with like Daniel Bryan and Kane with the hugging and things like that. So there's so many avenues you could go down. It just depends on when Randy comes back and how long he's out of action for. But in terms of the match was solid. But what do you expect from AJ Styles, one of the greatest of this generation, and Matt Riddle, who is a legit bona fide MMA star and could take on half of these people, half these superstars in the back. So it's crazy. It's really good from the talent that was in the ring, and the selling and the facial expressions of Matt Riddle just get better and better and better.
Just a tidbit here. Just honorable mention. The steel cage match between Biggie and Bobby Lashley. That entire segment I thought was amazing, very well put. Even though, yes, as you mentioned, Hurt Business didn't really have a triumphant return, but the entire scenario, the way Biggie won from the top rope, hitting the big ending and winning the match, I thought that was just very well crafted as a story and in terms of a genuine main event match on Raw. If I talk about NXT 2.0, Aman, what's going on with this show? Do you think the older NXT individuals, Ciampa is NXT champion, but you know what I mean, Ciampa, Gargano, Kyle O'Reilly, who else is there? You know, anyone who is not 6'8" and built like a tank, right? Roderick Strong, right? These guys, do you think their time in NXT is over?
I would say it's coming to an end. It's coming to an end. Like we discussed on the show last week, NXT is no longer a viable third brand. Its sole and only purpose is develop stars, ship them off to Raw and SmackDown, bring in the next batch, develop them, ship them off. It's going to be that rotating door of talent. And it's going to be the talent and the characters and the personas that Vince likes, that Vince sees a vision for in those superstars and places them onto Raw and SmackDown. I think that's where the major issues have been with superstars who are huge on NXT and how Triple H has presented them and how Shawn Michaels have presented them. And then they've got to the main roster and Vince says, yeah, okay, we're going to scrap all that. And this is my vision for you as a character on my show. And I know you like your cricket references. So at the end of the day, it's his bat and his ball. He's going to decide what he wants to do with you. And ultimately, if you want to continue to be employed by Vince McMahon, then you follow his instructions. But yeah, like we said last week, the old guard of NXT superstars, I think, are there solely for get the new guys over. We'll bring them up. We'll ship them off to Raw and SmackDown. I have been seeing a lot of rumor, and I must stress that it is just rumor on social media about a lot of NXT guys getting called up to Raw and SmackDown. Who that is in the draft, who that is, I'm not sure. But we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, as I say, the focus of this show has changed now. It is not there as viable competition or to create new stars specifically for that brand. It is create stories, create characters, get the purpose of these new talent over, send them to Raw and SmackDown. In terms of the show this past week, I know you're not a big fan, but I have enjoyed the Index stuff. I think it showed Johnny Gargano and Candice and Indy in such a different way. No, there was no pun intended there. It was and it had different facet and different personality of them, and just shows, I think, that Johnny can do everything. Really, he's humorous. He can be serious. He can be a heel. He can be a babyface. Whether he succeeds on the main roster, if that's their plan for him, I'm not sure. I have my reservations. I wanted the Raquel Gonzalez Frankie Monet match to be like a takeover level worthy match. I thought that would have been brilliant if they had done that. Whether they're doing takeovers anymore, I don't know. But I wasn't too crazy about the finish because you kind of just laid Frankie to the side and you brought in this Toxic Attraction faction, which I think, of course, you want to push, you want to get new people over, but I haven't fully invested in that group yet. So I wasn't thrilled about that finish.
That's very well put, because I wasn't thrilled about it either. It was literally, there's a feud going. It's the same thing as, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, and Finn Balor. Finn Balor was put to the side, right? He was second. He was a second thought, and Frankie Monet, in this sense, was a second thought. Their aim or their goal was Toxic Attraction is going to be the main attraction. Again, no puns intended there, but they will be the group that try and take down Raquel Gonzalez and her reign as NXT Women's Champion. I want to add something on top of what you said about Johnny Gargano. I'm not a big fan of the comedy, but I understand, I appreciate it, but I just don't like the comedy so much. And he is good, though. Johnny Gargano has been able to do any sort of role he's given: comedy, face, heel, even as just a talker. Dude can do everything so far. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. And one more thing I want to mention about NXT 2.0 is the fact that, because it's now very much a developmental brand, it's not a viable third brand. It is once again in the lower tier or lower echelon of the WWE landscape. Those rumors you're hearing, I've heard them too, right? Whoever does well in this NXT is going to get moved up into SmackDown and Raw very, very quickly. That's why I think Raquel Gonzalez might actually lose, and she's going to go up. I think, and this is based on what culture and stuff like that. They hit Raw, the group, they might be actually moving up to the main roster. You have LA Knight, who might actually be moving up to the main roster, because look at him. Look at what he can do. Look at the way he wrestles. The dude's made for the main roster in WWE. That's my take on it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, even though NXT 2.0 isn't the best thing in the world. But I want to keep track of it over the course of at least the next few weeks, just to see if it's actually a viable option. If it's good, watchable product, then obviously we'll cover it on the channel as well. Now, let's talk about AEW Dynamite. For me, there's 3 big things in AEW Dynamite this week, okay? I know you can talk about AEW for days, but for me, there's 3 big things that happened this week, okay? First off, we've got the MJF Darby Allin segment. Dude, how could you wish death upon someone? That was, as you said, that was fire. That segment was amazing. That battle of words was just reminiscent of, The Rock and Steve Austin. Again, not compared in terms of level, but in terms of where they are in the stage. If we go like 20, 25 years back, 20, 22 years back, it just reminded me of that. It was great back and forth. Then I want to talk about the fact that I think, you said this last week, Cody Rhodes is not Captain America. He's Homelander. I think he's going to turn heel soon. From the way things are happening, maybe Arn Anderson is what they're trying to show. Oh, he's heel or whatever. But I think Cody's the one who's going to turn heel officially. At least that's my take on it. And last but not least, Kenny No Balls. That's who I want to talk about. That's one of the funniest nicknames that got over so quickly that I was losing my mind. I was like, how did this get over in seconds? Bryan Danielson said this once, and the entire crowd, what is it, Rochester, right, started to explode and started to just chant this phrase over and over again. I'm just surprised Kenny Omega didn't get too annoyed. He looked like he was a bit annoyed, but then obviously he's the heel. He had to run off. And final point, I forgot to mention Rochester, Brody Lee's hometown, right? This show was dedicated to Brody Lee. The Dark Order won. Sammy Guevara won the TNT Championship. I know I said I only want to talk about 3 things, but this is what Dynamite does to you, Aman. It makes you talk about more things than you plan to do because it was such a great show. Again, it wasn't the best Dynamite in the world, right? Especially after what happened last week, the brilliance that was the Grand Slam. But it was very entertaining. They hit a lot of the beats that I've wanted them to hit for quite some time. And seeing Miro lose, it's not the greatest sight, but the way Sammy Guevara won, it was great. I never thought I would be able to cheer for him. When he started in AEW, he was like a conniving version of MJF, and MJF's pretty conniving, right? But now Sammy Guevara has become that hero kind of character, and it's great. And last but not least, Adam Cole versus Jungle Boy. That match was, that was gold. That is by far, even though Jungle Boy's had really good matches, Aman, this was probably the best Jungle Boy match I've seen since I've seen him in AEW. Personally, that's my take on it. And yes, Adam Cole won by a distraction or a low blow or whatever you want to call it, right? But that match up till that point was just absolute class, man. Panama Sunrise. Jungle Boy kicked out of a Panama Sunrise off the top rope. I was like, I'm losing my mind. I genuinely thought Jungle Boy was going to win and Adam Cole's going to lose, his second match in AEW? Oh, losing my mind, man. Sorry, that was long. Go on. What did you think of AEW Dynamite?
I'm glad to see that you enjoyed it as much as I am enjoying it. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it was the best that we've seen, but in comparison to the last few weeks, I thought it was a little bit slower, a little bit of a less newsworthy show. But the MJF Derby stuff, I'm so looking forward to that feud. And part of me thinks, well, you just let MJF say whatever the hell he wants because he's going to get booed out of the building anyways. But then the other half of me thinks, well, no, I think you need to rein yourself in a little bit because saying something which is probably so real and raw to Darby, maybe you don't want to cross the line. But then again, I can see why, because it's going to evoke the strongest reaction from people. So I'm very excited about that feud. I'm very excited to see how that progresses in the weeks ahead. The Cody Rhodes stuff, if he doesn't turn heel, something needs to happen to that character, because this clean-cut babyface character that he has been portraying for the last 2 years is grown stale, and is growing stale fast. That Arn Anderson promo seems to have set social media on fire because he was talking about guns and using them on national television. But then again, I guess that's Arn Anderson for you. The man's a legend, can say what he wants. I understood that. I like that. I'm intrigued to see where they go with this. And like I said, I think if it doesn't result in a heel turn, then you've missed a major opportunity. The Kenny Omega, Bryan Danielson stuff, and I just think it's really childish that chant, but it got over because look at the crowd, look at the demographic that it's catering to. It's like in NXT where I can't remember if you remember this, where it was Matt Riddle and Pete Dunne against Bobby Fish. And I believe it was Kyle O'Reilly, I'm not sure, either Kyle O'Reilly or Roderick Strong. And they got that ridiculous chant over about how much Fish could have...
Bobby Fish. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. That was amazing.
But it's just silly, but everybody loves it, so it gets over. But as I say, that was really good. I enjoyed that. The Adam Cole Jungle Boy match was good. I really liked it, and I think, again, referring to that podcast that I listened to, and I encourage everybody to listen to it. It's really, really interesting on a daily basis. They were talking about, yes, it was a good match, but the psychology and the fact that, okay, like you mentioned, the Panama Sunrise off the top rope, that's a finish. Does it take away from the move that he's kicking out from a Panama Sunrise on the off the top rope or off the turnbuckle? Does it diminish the move or the psychology or the real how realistic it is for somebody of that size and that stature being hit with that impactful of a move that he's not that he's kicking out? So I just think that there needs to be a bit more, for me, because I'm a traditionalist at heart, there should just be a bit more spacing of that match and just a bit more selling of these particular moves, especially these high impact moves. Because we've seen Adam Cole win matches with that move not being from the top rope. And yet Jungle Boy has managed to kick out from this move from the top rope. So that was my only criticism. But I think, as I say, the whole show was good again, top to bottom. The Brody Lee tribute, I think, is nice that they keep his memory alive, despite it being, I think, a year now, possibly. I think maybe a year or coming up to a year. So it's nice that they're keeping his memory alive and they're really doing different to what we're so accustomed to from other promotions. When a wrestler tragically passes away, it's kind of like a one episode tribute show, and then you kind of move on. So it's nice that they've been doing that, and it's different, and it sets them apart. So yeah, I agree with that. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I like the psychology argument. All I'm going to say is I'm the type of guy who wants a finisher to be the finisher. But I think what's going to happen in AEW, especially with Adam Cole, I don't think the Panama Sunrise is going to be his main finisher. It's like the V trigger, for example, for Kenny Omega. That's not his main finisher, but he can win with that. So I think it's going to be the equivalent of that. At least that's my take on it. And on top of that, I used to love when back in the day, you know, for example, if The Rock would hit a rock bottom, right? And then he just fall for about 10 seconds and then crawl and then pin over and then someone kicks out. That makes sense to me. But when it's straight away,
that's exactly my point. Because it adds to the tension, it adds to the, oh my God, is he going to be okay? Is it the finish? What's happening? It just adds and builds and builds. But if you just say, okay, I'm going to hit a Panama Sunrise, or I'm going to do some top rope move like a superplex or a power bomb or whatever, but he's going to kick out in 5 seconds, it kind of, for me, it just kind of takes away from the impact of that move and the realisticness of that move. Because let's face it, if that happened to somebody in not a controlled environment like wrestling is, nobody's getting up from that. So I just think get a bit more realistic. I can understand that the fans that you're catering to are like of an 18 to 49 demographic. They want to see that fast wrestling pace that that people have got used to. But I think just to slow it down, just to increase that tension and just to increase that suspense in some matches would be beneficial for them.
Completely agree there. So far, a good week of wrestling, I must say. Again, we'll eventually, once we've established more of a wrestling footprint, we'll start looking at the G1 Climax, which is happening at the moment, and mid/end of October. So we'll do a sort of show with that as well. We'll do some sort of reaction and Impact and Ring of Honor. Like, there's so much wrestling around the world. I'm barely keeping my hands kind of clawed onto AEW and WWE. But right, eventually we might have to, branch out a little. But so far, I think it's been such a good week so far, and I hope the draft goes well. And for everyone watching, we will be doing a draft centric show on Tuesday/Wednesday next week. So please keep an eye out for that. And yeah, everyone, thank you. Please do like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, take care, stay safe. Bye.
Bye.